Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this evening's Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Go straight to the agenda because you're aware of the fire emergency procedures and if you stick to the COVID rules when you're moving about the building. And agenda item number 1, I've just gone through, is the emergency evacuation procedure. Agenda item number 2, we've received apologies for absence from Councillor Rain, Councillor Wass and Councillor Garbett-Moore. Moving on to agenda item number 3, which is the minutes of the meeting held on the 24th of March. I think you've all received a copy and we were all present. So are you happy to have the minutes noted? Can we go by general affirmation on that? Yep, general affirmation.
That is recorded, Chair.
Agenda item number 4 is urgent business. I do have some urgent business to bring up at the end of the meeting, which is in relation to our job as Standards Committee, which I'll put at the end of the meeting so we can have a chat about and discuss that then. Item number 5 on the agenda is, are there any declarations of interest? No declarations of interest. And moving on to Part A items, matters to be dealt with under delegated powers or matters determined by a committee. Agenda item number 6 is the draft annual governance statement, and I'll move on to Anton for that. Good evening, Anton.
Good evening. Hi, everyone. This is the first, and it's an early draft of the annual governance statement. It's something the committee looks at every year, and it's something that we publish in its final version along with the statement of accounts. Now, we won't be publishing the statement of accounts for quite a few months yet, but I think this gives members the opportunity to have a look at where we are and also invite any comments over the next few weeks and months from members, either tonight or as I say, over the next few weeks and months. So what it does, there's two things really. It sets out a record saying what we've done in terms of our governance issues over the past year, including indeed some of the issues that this committee has discussed, and you'll see that in the first part of it. We will update this statement as we get closer to end of year and publication of annual accounts. Not least, we will include final data that we'll receive from our colleagues in internal audit near the time. The other part of the report really, and I suppose this is where I'm really looking for any comments, from members, are in the key issues that we highlight in the second part of this statement. And these are the key issues that we deem to be key for the council. They are very similar to the ones you last looked at in December, I think December and November, although they have been updated. They cover the areas of financial sustainability, waste and recycling, the local plan, resilience and capacity, economic recovery and growth, climate change, and the council plan. So I'd be grateful for any views if you think that we've missed anything out, anything that we need to add. Because although you might not see this final version until much later in the year, we'll be getting on with dealing with these issues. So it's always useful to kind of treat this as a live document, really. The other thing to say, point out the obvious, the key issues are not, each of them, they're not a full comprehensive statement about all of these issues. For example, the last one, the council plan, it's not simply a copy of the council plan, but it does summarise some of the areas that we want to look out for, particularly in terms of governance. So I'll say no more than that and say invite comments either this evening or happy to take comments from members over the next few weeks and months as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Anton. Are there any questions or comments? Councillor Oxley.
I'm not sure it's a question or a comment, really. The last week we released onto the website a update of how we were doing, how the council was doing in terms of achievement against the council plan. Very positive document, very positive update on what we were doing, and presumably all of that is taken from this documentation.
It's probably more. It's probably a bit of that, and also the other way around. I think, Councillor Oxley. So this part is it could well be that statement set out some of our governance issues, but in here, in the area that we've identified as a key issue, which a council plan is, this document will be a summary of what you saw on the website last week. So it works both ways. They're all interlinked. Similarly with the financial strategy and some of the stuff we have in there, that document will be interlinked with this one.
Have you finished, Councillor Oxley?
Yeah, I think so. As Anton says, this is an iterative process that will roll on, and everything seems to be moving that we'd expect to be moving, and I'm sure it'll be picked up on as we go forward. I'm not sure that the efforts that are having to go into local government reform will impact on this at all. I would hope not. So no, I'm finished. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? No further questions, Anton. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to agenda item number 7, which is the third internal audit and counter-fraud progress report. And I believe that's Richard Smith and Jonathan.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Firstly, apologies from Connor, who normally presents our internal audit work. He's away, so I'm covering for him today, but I'll do my best to answer any questions you have. And Jonathan obviously can answer any questions on counter-fraud work. This is our regular update paper to the committee on progress in delivering internal audit and counter-fraud work. The details are actually set out in Annex 1 for internal audit and Annex 2 for counter-fraud. Turning to internal audit, first of all, we've summarised ongoing work from paragraph 6 onwards, and we've also included Appendix A, which provides a summarised version of work in progress and reports finalised in relation to 21-22. We finalised one final report since the last report to this committee, and that was on the SIPFA Financial Management Code, which we gave a substantial assurance opinion, and the findings are summarised in Appendix C. I think overall, probably one thing to say is there's probably more outstanding work at this stage than we would normally hope for in relation to 2021-22 work, but we're hopeful that we're going to be able to conclude the outstanding work as early as possible in 2022-23. The counter-fraud progress report Annex 2 summarises work up to the end of February 2022, and that includes a summary of outcomes in Appendix A of the report. I think I'll probably leave it there. Happy to take any questions on either internal audit or counter-fraud progress.
Thank you, Richard. Are there any questions for Richard? Councillor Oxley.
Thanks, Chair. Richard, the comment of more outstanding work probably now than we would normally expect to see this time of year. I think I can draw some conclusions as to why that might be, but could you just sort of confirm that it is about, or sort of why that is the case, rather?
Yeah, sure. I suppose two reasons mainly. Firstly, we are in the kind of run up to LGR. There's lots of pressure on officers at the council, and we're trying to be mindful of that, and that does cause some delays in our work. But also, we're still suffering from some hangover from COVID, sort of a lack of ability to progress some work as quickly as we would like earlier in the year. So that's kind of had a knock-on impact on us as well. So those are the two primary reasons, I would say.
Any further questions? No further questions for you, Richard. Thank you. I'll hand over to Jonathan.
Richard presented the counter-fraud report, but I'm happy to answer any questions about counter-fraud work.
Any questions for Jonathan? No. Thank you, Jonathan. Moving on to agenda. Apologies. If we move back to agenda item number 6, if we can move to have the annual governance statement draft version noted. Can we have that by general affirmation? Note that by general affirmation. And moving on to agenda item number 7, can we have the third internal audit and counter-fraud progress report noted as well? By general affirmation. Thank you, by general affirmation.
Both of those are recorded.
Moving on to agenda item number 8 is the internal audit and counter-fraud governance plans for 22 to 23. Sorry, I think that's Richard and Jonathan as well.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So this is the report we bring each year to the committee, setting out proposed work programmes for internal audit and counter-fraud for the coming financial year. And the actual work programmes are set out in annexes 1 and 2. For internal audit, there is a requirement for the committee to approve the work programme to ensure the council complies with internal audit standards, but we also bring along a high-level summary counter-fraud work programme just to give the committee oversight of the work that we're doing on counter-fraud. Turning to Annex 1, the internal audit work programme, within the annex itself, we've summarised how we go about planning. Essentially, we look at the range of risks faced by the council using a range of different sources, which are summarised at paragraph 11 of the annex. For example, we're looking at risk registers, we're looking at external environmental factors facing the council, we're looking at significant areas of change. We also look to provide broad coverage across a range of assurance areas that we've defined, and they're set out in paragraph 10 of Annex 1. We also consult with risks with this committee, on risks with this committee and with senior managers at the council to determine what priorities for internal audit are. The internal audit programme itself is set out in Appendix A. This is a long list of areas that we currently think may be a priority during the coming year. We don't expect to cover everything. This is a long list, and we will be reviewing it throughout the year, probably adding some things in, taking some things out in consultation with officers. The main thing for us to recognise this year is the impact of LGR. We expect that to be the overriding influence in one way or another on probably every piece of audit work that we do, whether that's in sort of supporting the council in maintaining operation of key controls in core areas during the last year, but also delivering work in areas that supports council officers in their preparations for LGR. The programme set out in Appendix A, we've kind of roughly split it, say a third on areas we expect to be ongoing priorities and 2/3 on areas linked to LGR in some way or another. The counter-fraud programme is summarised in Annex 2. It is very similar to programmes you'll have seen in years. It's split across a number of different areas, such as reactive work on investigations, proactive work, raising awareness of fraud, making sure that officers know what to do if fraud occurs, those types of things. But similarly to internal audit, we would probably note that there's a particular need to be mindful this year of any new or emerging risks relating to local government reorganisation. Obviously, times of big change can present opportunities for fraudsters, and that's something that we have to be aware of. That's it in terms of the report. Happy to take any questions on either internal audit or counter fraud.
Thank you. I do have one coming to that last comment that you just made. What sort of areas are we going to be at risk, do you think, for new methods of fraud or ongoing methods of fraud?
Jonathan may want to answer this, but I mean, just to give my perspective, there's a lot of change going on. It's kind of essential that the sort of key controls that operate in normal times around payment, separation of duties, all of those types of things continue to occur. You know, if the council is suffering resource pressures with staffing, there is greater risk that perhaps some of those controls don't continue to operate as they do in normal times. So it's just having an awareness of that and making sure that we are reinforcing the need for those types of controls. Jonathan, do you want to add your perspective to that from a counter fraud side?
I suppose I'd like to add that there's also a risk to members of the public, because the members of the public are used to dealing with the district councils that they live in, and fraudsters could purport to speak for the new council on the council's behalf. So good communications is going to be key moving into LGR and the formation of the new council.
Thank you, Jonathan. Are there any other questions? Councillor Oxley.
Yeah. I understand that this work programme over the 225 days is at the minute a little bit of a finger in the air because of the balance of work that's to be done. Is there a likelihood that as LGR gathers speed, there will need to be more rearrangement of how that time is used than there is normally been in previous years? And if so, how will this committee have a role to play in that? Might there need to be more meetings? Might there need to be more reports?
Yeah, I think that is spot on. I think there will definitely be a need to be more alert to the need to keep the plan up to date in terms of what is most important right now in relation to sort of LGR. So yes, I definitely think there is more prospect of change in the plan this year. We'll obviously be discussing what the priorities are with officers on an ongoing basis. And as you're aware, as part of all of our progress reports, we do present a list of updated priorities. So we will keep you informed. You know, if there does become a need to kind of consult, obviously we'll be mindful of that as well. So yeah, I think ongoing communication about what work internal audit is doing this year is key.
If I may, Chair, sorry, Richard. The other concern side of that coin for me is about the resource to achieve what's got to be achieved, because as this all gathers momentum, I can see this scenario of, you know, at the end of the day, we're saying, well, this has all got to be done. There is no alternative to it, and there's the deadline, but we are, you know, way short on resource to do it. Is that something that will be, again, I'm sure to be reviewed, but it does need to be flagged early if it's happening?
Certainly, I'm not expecting a shortage on resource from internal audit's perspective. I think where the difficulties will arise is recognising that officers will be full on working on LGR, and that's something we're asking our internal auditors to be very mindful of, that all of our work this year should be focused on how we can support services with the work they're doing, but also deliver us a level of assurance as well. So, you know, we're looking at making sure the scope of work will be sort of fairly narrow, if you like, looking at immediate priorities and particularly priorities connected to LGR.
Yeah, I think that's, thanks, Rich. I think that's vitally important for this committee to note. We need a big flag somewhere that says we need to be constantly checking that we've got this covered, or we'll get caught out.
Any further questions? Councillor Oxley. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Richard and Jonathan. It's recommended that the internal audit work programme for 22 to 23 be approved, and that the counter fraud work programme also be noted. Can we move that by general affirmation? Thank you. General affirmation. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 9, which is the Safer Rydale and Rydale Community Safety Partnership Action Plan. And I'll hand over to Bridget.
Thank you, Chair. As Overview and Scrutiny is the designated committee to receive the Safer Rydale Partnership reports, this report provides the committee with an update on the work of the Safer Rydale Partnership delivery of the Rydale Community Safety Action Plan 21-23, Section 17 of the Crime and Disorder Act 1998. Rydale District Council sit on the North Yorkshire Community Safety Partnership and agrees to deliver on the North Yorkshire Community Safety Partnership Strategy, which is Appendix B, as outlined in 6.3, along with all the key statutory partners. Rydale District Council Community Safety Partnership developed the action plan for Rydale, which is Appendix A. 6.7 outlines key priorities, which are the partnership development, community safety hub, early and effective intervention, hate crime, community cohesion, serious organised crime and domestic abuse. 6.8 of the report is around the Rydale Community Safety Hub, formulated in February 21. And 6.9, the multi-agency problem-solving meeting, which is held fortnightly, which focuses on complex cases around antisocial behaviour and require multi-agency approach to problem-solving. 6.10, the Orkuma Case Management System, which all of North Yorkshire local authorities and Community Safety Hub access and input to enable sharing of information across the region. And 6.12 details the joint visits of the team with partner agencies. 6.3, weekly tasking briefing meetings, which is intelligence-led, enabling information sharing around current issues and individuals and communities. 6.14, community maps, also held fortnightly, focusing on emerging community tensions and early intervention and prevention, creating a strong community network. Thank you, Chair. Any questions?
Thank you, Bridget. Councillor Oxley. I thought your hand was up then. I've got a question, Bridget. It's just about, obviously you're probably aware of the social media these days. It just seems that antisocial behaviour in the areas, various areas in Rydale seem to be on the increase, with more people complaining about it. Are you finding that you're getting more reports, or are people just reporting on social media and not contacting the council?
I do agree there's an awful lot goes onto social media, but that is just how things are currently. We do receive quite a lot of antisocial behaviour reports, and they come in various ways into the council, be it by telephone direct to the team or emails direct or on the reporting form that we have, and all are dealt, confidentially in an individual manner. I would say they have increased, and certainly through COVID, minor things probably would deem to be stronger because of the nature of lockdowns, etc. But yeah, I think they have increased, but we deal with everything in it as individual matters.
Thank you. Moving on from that then, so with the 2 new officers that were employed, I mean, I assume they've got quite a heavy workload. Are they coping, or do we need extra people?
We have the 5 community link officers, which are all the place-based, each have an area, a market town and the parishes. And then on that we have a community link safety officer, which deals with, obviously, what it says in the title. And then following on from that, we now have the community enforcement officers, and as you say, there are 2 new officers in post. They are very busy. I'm not going to, brush over that. They're extremely busy, but they have received, as the whole team have, some really good training through the Keep Britain Training Academy. So they are able to deal with what comes forward. They're well trained in the legislation. They know which powers they have. They're extremely good interviewing under pace, and are dealing with everything that's coming their way. They are extremely busy, but they're not expressing, and I certainly haven't seen, they're not coping with what's coming forward. They are managing it. And plus, what they don't pick up, the rest of the team do. It is a real team, is the community team. One will pick up if the other's, you know, extremely busy, the one might be slightly quieter, so the team will pick each other's work up if required. So I can say there is nothing really going by the wayside, everything is getting picked up.
Thank you. Councillor Oxley.
Yeah, thanks, Bridget. Like many members, you know, given the number of parish and town councils, I see a lot of this work being reported back, and it's great to see it being reported back. I just would like to stress how impressed I am with the speed of response from the team here at Rydale. You know, something gets mentioned, you pass a message on, and literally within minutes, I've got a response coming back to me that either they're aware of it or not, which is great. I think the other thing that's come out of all the times I've sat and seen this discussed, and something that I think I would want to raise tonight to you, although you're aware of it, is this sense of, picking up on what the Chair said, of how information gets to us and the encouragement we need to give to the public that if there is a problem, they need to tell somebody, whether it's us or whether it's the police or whatever. And I think the more we can get that message out of, unless you report it, nobody will do anything. That is really something that I would like to see all the multi-agencies actually pushing across at people. It's no good saying nothing will happen. I have my own personal experience of reporting things, and things do happen. So I think that really is a very strong message that we need to ensure is right at the very heart of. There's no point us putting things in place and being willing to do things if the public don't understand that they have to do something.
Okay, and thank you, and I appreciate everything you're saying. And I think part of the formation of the Rydale Community Safety Hub and the moving in of the police has enabled that real multi-agency approach, and the amount of partners that are sitting around in that office space, be it the school liaison to the domestic abuse officers. So we've got, you know, we're picking catch-all almost now, and the information sharing through the tasking, the multi-agency meetings, we're able to have a complete overview, really, hopefully, of what is. If it's getting reported to the police, then it'll come down to our team as well. We're aware of it. And so then you get the joint visits and the multi-agency working, which is what we set out to aspire to, which hopefully we are now. You know, it's coming to fruition, so, yeah.
Yeah, Bridget, I'll just pick up on the rural crime part, because I'm from the Wolds, obviously. I know that with the different social media WhatsApp groups with the police and the locals, and I have had reports back that they're very pleased with the way the council are interacting with that. So that's another positive for the council, that it is coming back to me that you are doing a good job and looking into things and working alongside the police. It's getting sorted. So from the rural side, everybody seems to be quite happy. Okay.
Once again, thanks for that. And the team are part of the rural WhatsApp group for poaching, etc. So those reports are coming direct to them as well in real time.
Any further questions? No, thank you, Bridget. It is recommended that the Overview and Scrutiny Committee note the achievements of the Safer Rydale Action Plan as outlined in Appendix A to deliver the North Yorkshire Community Safety Partnership Strategy in Appendix B. Can we take that by general affirmation? Thank you. General affirmation. Moving on to agenda item number 10, I have been in discussions with the monitoring officer about this, and we decided to delay this. But Elizabeth, would you like to just speak on this subject and why it was delayed?
Yes, of course. Thank you, Chair. This is a report that up until 2019 came to the committee on an annual basis, and the last time it was reported was in November 2019, and we haven't had an update since that time, obviously due to COVID and all the other sort of issues. We currently have an issue of concern surrounding behaviour in meetings generally, which the chair is going to discuss later on in the meeting. And so therefore it was felt that this was a matter that ought to be dealt with prior to any sort of general report then being made to the committee, and it may well involve the ONS committee acting as a standards committee in this matter. So taking that all together, it was decided that it would be appropriate to have the discussion with all members of the committee and have a collective decision as to how to move forward. And then once that matter had been dealt with, this then could be reported in the autumn to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. So it was just generally felt that this was not the appropriate time to make this report and to discuss it pending all the other discussions that need to take place.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Are there any comments? No. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
Moving on to Part B items, matters referred to full council. And agenda item number 11 is the External Auditor's Annual Report. And I believe Gareth's sunning himself in North Yorkshire as we speak. So I'll hand over to Talina.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So this is our, annual auditor's annual report, which covers the value for money conclusion work mainly. And the members would know that, we had a lot of discussions, training on the new scope of VFM work, where previously we had, binary VFM work where we qualified or not qualified our work, whereas here we have a wider scope which we cover financial sustainability, governance, and improving 3 E's. So, Chair, what I would do is I take this report as read, but I'll cover some of the key messages. If you turn to page 95 of the official pack, which covers the executive summary. So you can see from the left-hand side, there are 3 areas, and there are 3 types of recommendations. Statutory, where we publicly report that, and the council needs to respond to that publicly. So there's no such statutory recommendations for IDALE. Obviously, that was expected. And then we have key recommendations where we identify significant weaknesses. Then we need to issue a key recommendation. So there are no significant weaknesses identified. And the third layer type is called improvement recommendations. So in a nutshell, I think this is a very positive report telling a story that we have experienced. I think this is our 4th year of audit, 21-22 of RIDEL, and the report covers quite a wide area. I mean, if you can see in each section in the left-hand side, it covers, for financial sustainability, we cover 5-6 areas. Similarly on all areas. So while I'm not going to go into detail of everything, all commentaries, what I'll do is on the executive summary page, in terms of financial sustainability, obviously no key recommendations, no significant weaknesses. We found one improvement recommendation on, I think, linked to LGR and the amount of, I think, sizable general fund reserves the council's got. We made a, improvement recommendation that, between now and 1st April 2023, any sort of non-statutory expenditure should be closely scrutinized, and there should be business cases, and there should be a members' fiduciary duty to the local taxpayers, but basically how the financial governance can be improved. In terms of governance, Chair, we have found, again, no significant weaknesses. Therefore, no key recommendations. There are two improvement recommendations. One is around, obviously, we know LGI is happening. The senior management is, heavily involved, and there are like dual roles on day-to-day, governance or management of the council, as well as, working with other 7 councils in terms of how this transfer would happen smoothly. So that would definitely bring in additional challenges to the senior management. So what we are saying there is these should be obviously mapped to the capacity of the senior management, and when there are issues in terms of these dual responsibilities, that needs to be, I think, reported and discussed with the relevant committees, including this one. And you can see all the recommendations have been responded by the management. And the second one is on obviously compliance with the members' code of conduct. That's something that we discussed, that it needs updating what's been published, because there are no dates, so you cannot check the compliance with your own members' code, because some of the members' interests published on the website hasn't got a date. Coming to improving 3Es, Chair, obviously, again, no significant weaknesses, and therefore no key recommendations. A couple of improvement recommendations. One is related to, again, LGR, financial and workforce related implications, i.e. in terms of financial, there are direct LGR costs. I think what we are saying is make sure that there are processes, governance arrangements should be in place to check whether they are value for money for the council. And secondly, obviously, the workforce is working under challenging circumstances, and making sure that their welfare is looked after. And the second recommendation on 3Es is on climate change. Obviously, there's a commitment on zero emissions, and there was obviously work done on climate emergency UK a few years ago, where there was a improvement plan. So council obviously had made significant progress on this. What we're saying is, continue to do that, and making sure that climate emergency UK's improvement plans are continue to be implemented. That's the summary, Chair, but I would like to highlight a couple of things specifically, just to mention the journey of Rydale. If you turn to page 104 of the governance page, some of the members who were in the committee a few years ago would recall that our 1819 VFM conclusion was qualified on the basis of lack of embedding governance, risk management, and financial monitoring to have informed decision making. And you can see that the journey that Rydale has come through over the last 3.5-4 years. That you can see clear risks registers reported to this committee and the PNR, and also quarterly financial reporting, which clearly identifies income, expenditure, and gaps in any budgets that can be mitigated. So these are, I think, positive messages that we are relaying in this report, that the journey that Rydale has come through over the years, and I think that key contributors, I think, from our observations are the chief exec and Anton, who sort of implemented these since we started in 1819. And the second one I would like to highlight is on, again, improving Three's partnership working. I think this again a positive story how Rydell work with partners, and I think we mentioned another LGR region which we are the auditors in the Northwest, and we can clearly benchmark that, and we can see the improvements and how far ahead Rydell and the partners are working in the North Yorkshire LGR side. So I think I'll stop there, Chair, and I just want to really highlight these a couple of positive messages as well. And I'll stop now and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Talina. Are there any questions? Councillor Oxley.
Observation, if I may. Thank you for confirming that I've found the right 2 pages. I've got the right notes here to play back to you. You've stolen my thunder. I just wanted to make the point that if you look at the 2 cases you highlighted, I think it does show how what progress has been made. And I, as a member of this committee, feel far more comfortable now with my understanding of what's going on than I did 3-4 years ago. So thank you to everybody involved in moving us forward on that, both internally and externally. The other point I'd want to make is that I find it incredibly refreshing that somebody in the role that you and your organisation in is highlighting the need for us to look after staff welfare as this moves forward. I think that really does show the sort of relationship that you've developed with our officers, and it's all very encouraging. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions? Thank you, Talina, and yes, thank you to all of you for the work that you've been doing and the improvements that have been made by officers and auditors over the last few years. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
It is recommended that the committee notes the external auditor's annual report. Can we take that by general affirmation? Yep. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 12, which is the ONS forward plan, and I'll hand over to Elizabeth to go through this.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know if members have had the opportunity to look through the forward plan. Please accept my apologies for the fact that this was delayed, and this was a to follow, which was sent out to you, I believe, on a few days ago. The reason why it was delayed was that the senior management board were looking at the dates, etc., etc. The forward plan covers the period 23rd of June to the 16th of February next year, obviously leading up to vesting day. I'm happy to go through, the details line by line, but if you've got any particular questions, I'm happy to answer those, or if you're happy with, what is detailed in the forward plan and the timings, then, happy to move forward with that to council.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I was happy with it. Is everybody else happy? Yep. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
So do we just note to have that moved? Yes. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Moving on to agenda item 13, which is any other business that the chairman decides is urgent. As I mentioned earlier, there's been a number of complaints recently from the public, from officers and other members of the council regarding the behaviour of councillors, both in meetings and their attitude towards other members and officers, and just the example that we're setting. I, for one, have been concerned about some of the behaviours that have been portrayed, and think that we need to have a look at standards and the code of conduct, and to remind members of that code of conduct and how they should portray themselves when they're acting as councillors, and whilst they are councillors, just wanted to know if anybody else had any comments to make on that.
Couldn't agree with you more.
Have you got any ideas on, obviously Elizabeth's working on that, and there are, North Yorkshire, our legal department are looking into the various complaints that are ongoing at the moment, which obviously we can't talk about. But is there anything that you've got ideas that we can move forward, or do you just think we need to remind councillors of the code of conduct? Perhaps it could be sent out again to all councillors. Councillor Ryby.
I support what you've said. I find I don't know what is legal and what is illegal or incorrect or correct in behaviour patterns. There's no problem as far as I'm concerned in a bit of rabble raising, but yeah, some of the areas I'm unsure whether it is breaking the code of conduct by, for example. One of the things that irritate me is en bloc abstention or en bloc walking out, but I don't know that that's incorrect or not really. So I'm unsure. But it's not. It doesn't set a good example, I don't think.
Thank you, Councillor Ryby. Elizabeth, is there any way we can have the code sent out to all councillors again, just to remind them?
Yes, we can. And sort of in terms of the code of conduct, there are sort of the general principles, and we've adopted the Local Government Association member code of conduct, which does talk about Nolan principles, and these are 7 sort of special principles really, but part of the sort of the issue, I think, is not so much whether it's illegal or legal. It's about how officers and other members and members of the public perceive the sort of the behaviour. So I think it would be very useful if we did just send this out to remind everybody. And obviously, as you are aware, at full council meetings, the chair has read out just a sort of a paragraph to remind people about behaviour. So I think, no one is sort of questioning that, this is a democracy and we have to have robust debate, but it's when people are feeling harassed and possibly bullied within a meeting, that then starts to impinge on whether that's gone beyond behaviour that is acceptable. So I think it would be very useful to send out to all members, what the expectation is in terms of behaviour for everybody, both inside and outside of meetings.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Yes, I think some of the behaviour, well, whether it's illegal or not in that manner, it wouldn't be accepted in any other workplace as such. So I think it is something that seriously needs addressing, and members need reminding of their behaviour. Any other comments? Councillor Oxley.
Yeah, I mean, on my time on this council, there's probably nobody raised more more observations about members' behaviour in the round than me. Some of which have been actioned and some of which haven't. Doesn't absolve me from sometimes doing things that I reflect on and say, wish I hadn't done that, but they're different issues altogether. I think the issue here, Elizabeth, is that I think the Chair's probably highlighted it. It's not about legal or illegal, it's about what's acceptable and not acceptable.
I agree.
And I think far too often members have strayed over that line in recent times. And I think, yes, reminding them all what the code of conduct is would help. I think there is a need to have a look at the sort of feedback we may or may not be getting from not just members, but particularly from officers and members of staff. And if there are areas that are really concerning them, then they need highlighting to members, because we do have that duty of care. I think the other thing I would point out is that in terms of Rydell District Council, we have another 12 months to do. It would be a really good time to put our house in order so that people, you know, don't use these 12 months, which could be used as a sort of, does it really matter much anymore because it's all failing, and start playing all sorts of games and politics with every size of P that you want, that members realise that that will just leave a nasty taste in people's mouths. And I also think that there is probably a need to look at how group leaders are used in this process as a group. I don't mean as individuals, I mean that, you know, they need to be aware of, and they need to, for want of a better term, sign up to making sure that the people that they lead behave the way that they should. I should probably shut up there now, or I'll be probably straying away, but this is long overdue, and I'm delighted to see it being sorted out.
Thank you.
Yeah, I do think the importance of all leaders being on board, lead by example as such. I may be looking at it with rose-tinted spectacles, but it would be nice to think that the final year we could actually achieve something without spending a long time trying to upset each other's apple carts. So if we can get an email sent out with a reminder of the code of conduct, and we'll see what happens from there. But I do think there needs to be an improvement. And obviously our hands are tied, really, whilst it's being investigated. But okay, thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
And that's it. Is that okay, Owen? If we can close the meeting. Thank you for attending, everyone. Thanks to all the officers. Thanks to the members that attended.